Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Brad Lone Wolf, and today is, or this video is, a video I asked people to vote on in the last video, and that was to see whether they wanted to see my Airsoft collection or my archery stuff. And by unanimous vote, people wanted to see the Airsoft stuff. So, without further ado, I'll unlock the cupboard and we'll get on with it. So I'm not going to go into details about Airsoft in the UK or various information on the real steel stuff. I'm just going to go through the collection I've got and why I've got them. The vast majority of the stuff that you see up there is from a certain video game franchise, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. And well, yeah, let's just get on with it. Let's just start as we mean to go on, and just get on with it. So I'll be back in a second with the top row, which is pistols, revolvers, and submachine guns. Okay, so right there you can see my collection of pistols, revolvers, and submachine guns. Going through them briefly and quickly. Uzi, submachine gun, cheap, crappy single shot Beretta, Samurai Edge, Beretta. That's a high capper, but it's based on the 1911. It's also based on the STI Eagle, VP70, and yes, I have got the shoulder stock, and I'll show you that later. Colt Python 4-inch, Colt Python 6-inch, Colt Python 6-inch, but that one's the CO2 version. So I'll go through each one of these, or each of these individually, and tell you why I've got them, basically. We'll start with the Samurai Edge, why not? So Samurai Edge, and if I zoom in or if I bring it closer to the camera, you should be able to see, come on, focus. Should be able to see stars, RPD, special team, and then mod, Samurai Edge, law enforcement only. Obviously this is the handgun from Resident Evil, both the original and the remake. Obviously got the stars badge there as well. This is Tokyo Marui. This is the company that you often see at the end of the games. Their logo come up. This is actually one of their products. It is the official one. There's another company out there that make these. They are officially unofficial, I suppose. This one in particular, this is made in Japan. This is an all plastic gun. By Japanese law, it actually has to be plastic. The quote-unquote unofficial one is actually made out of metal. Now, it's an interesting question whether you get the Marui or the metal one, because the Marui one is the official licensed product, whereas the metal one isn't. But the metal one is obviously heavier and therefore more realistic in that sense. So that's for that one. You will get a chance to see me shoot all of these later, of course. That's that one though. Samurai Edge. The cheap, nasty, crappy plastic blue one is another Beretta, same as the Samurai Edge there. Difference with this one is it's cheap and nasty and crap and plasticky. Why do I keep it around? Well, while you get the chance to shoot people at very, very long range, if you get close enough to shoot somebody with one of these, and this is a single shot, so you have to cock the action every time. This one's actually broken, But if you get to shoot somebody with one of these, it means you get close enough that they haven't spotted you. That's basically why I keep that one around. I'll do the Uzi last. Okay, so the next one, the High Kappa. This one it was based on the 1911. I say based, it is based on the 1911. I got this mainly because it's the closest looking one to Jill's custom pistol in Resident Evil 3, the original one. There are two differences. One is very slight, the other one is noticeable, but there is a reason for it. This one you can use in competition. Because you can use it in competition, it means there's a slight variation on it. So the small difference is that Jill's Eagle in Resident Evil 3 is a 6-inch one. This is 5.5 inch. Overall, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference in Airsoft, but that's the main difference. The biggest difference that you will notice, though, is this has got what's known as a split slide. So only half the slide comes back, kind of like a Desert Eagle in that sense. Only the back portion comes back, the front half stays where it is. Again, like as I said before, it's mainly for a competition thing. It means that the slide moves backwards and forwards quicker. It also makes it more gas efficient, in that it's only cycling half the slide. So that's that one. Okay, VP70 is next. This is, again, it's not an official one, so it hasn't got the markings, it's just got LS Works on there. Not that LS Works exists anymore, funnily enough. You might recognise this as Leon's handgun from Resident Evil 2, and it is. It's the Heckler & Koch, or Heckler & Koch, VP70. Without going into too much detail, this wasn't a very popular pistol in the real world, and there's a couple of videos online as to why, and you can quite quickly work out as to why it wasn't that popular. Now, you're obviously going to ask the question, so I will answer it. Yes, I do have the shoulder stock, and it's right there. The main difference between this one and the one you see in Resident Evil is this is just a skeletonized version. Does the same thing, but it's lighter and a little bit smaller. It's actually a bit too small for me to use comfortably, and you'll see that when I come to shoot these. But all that you do to change it into what you see is just slide it on. That's it. That's all you need to do. You'll notice the switch there with 1 and 3. Doing that, in the real still world, in the real thing, swaps that to a 3-round burst. In Airsoft, turns it to fully automatic, and again I'll show you that later when I come to shoot all of these. Have to switch it to semi-automatic to release the stock though. Okay, 3 revolvers. Models of the exact same gun, actually. All Colt Pythons. All modelled slightly differently. The 2 on the outside, the silver ones, they are cheap plastic ones. I got this one because it more closely resembles the Resident Evil one with the 4-inch barrel. That one, I got that one, well, I got both of these together because they're on a deal. That one I got because it more closely resembles Barry Burton's Colt Python. You can argue that he runs around with a Colt Anaconda in the remake, but for the purposes of this and for the purposes of cosplay, it really doesn't make a difference. In the real steel it does, but for these purposes it really doesn't. So, cheap plastic one for cosplay. Again, the reason I use this for cosplay as opposed to this one. £20 for that. over 100 for that. So yeah, I'd rather get that confiscated than that one, as you can imagine. Even though it's cheap plastic, it does work. The cylinder revolves, but it is just a cheap spring one. That's all that's for. And like I say, I got that one because it more closely resembles the Resident Evil one. This is the CO2 powered one. This is, well, it is my hand cannon, and when I've gone airsoft skirmishing, it has scared the shit out of people. Not just because of the noise, it probably won't make a very big sound on camera, but also because it hits a lot harder than most pistols. But more importantly in my mind, you can keep pulling the trigger. It'll keep making the noise, and it's actually kept people's heads down. They've seen me shooting this at them, and they've heard it going off, and they've actually kept their heads down because they think it's been shooting. So, which has always been interesting. Whereas with something like that or that, not the VP-17, but with those two, after the last shot's fired, slide stays back, and people know that you are out of BBs. So, that's pistols and revolvers. Oh, yes. People often wonder how accurate these are in terms of how realistic they are. This is an actual 357 shell. It's been fired. It's an inert round. So it's been fired. The bullet's actually welded in place, so I can't use it as a real thing. But that's the cylinder opened up. Okay, there's the bullet. Drops in, and it actually sits where the real steel would. And just to prove it, so it even operates. Obviously it won't fire because inert round and the fact that it's only a CO2. That's how accurate some of these guns can be. Whether you choose that to take a good thing or a bad thing is entirely up to you. I kind of stand on the fence and say it's both a good thing and a bad thing. The accuracy means that you can get a real feel for what's happening, but there is potential for illegally transforming these guns into real ones. I don't think it would happen, but I'm not saying it can't. This is where Japan has a good idea with its replicas. This is made out of plastic, so there's no point in even trying to convert them, because as soon as you put an explosion through it, it's just going to blow up. So that's pistols and revolvers. Last but not least is the Uzi submachine gun. This is one of my favourites. In fact, they're all my favourites for different reasons. I can't use this when airsoft skirmishing, however. It fires far too powerfully. The UK limit at the moment is 350 feet per second. This is shooting close to 400. Now, if it was semi-automatic only, I'd be able to get away with it. But it's not, and you'll see that later on with the video. But this is a fun gun to shoot, even if I can't shoot it at people. It is real weight, so it is bloody heavy. Stock does fold out. Not necessarily in our Resident Evil replica, as you can probably tell. But if you remember a certain Tomb Raider ran around with a couple of these, then yeah, still a video game gun, if you like. Okay, so that's pistols, revolvers, and submachine guns. I'll be back in a second with shotguns and rifles. Give me a second, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so this is the first of 6 rifles and shotguns. The first 3. So moving swiftly on, the one at the bottom here, this is a replica of the M14. Used to be the battle rifle, the main battle rifle of the American Army, until they swapped over to the M16 and the M4, of which I'll make some notes later. This is a fairly old replica now. It's actually a little bit creaky, a little bit old, but I love it for the fact that when I turn up to an airsoft skirmish, it's different. It's different. It's it's an M14, and it's got the bloody great sniper scope on it. Needs a bit of work doing to it. The hop up, which is something that makes your rifles more accurate, that started wearing away, so that needs changing. But apart from that, I absolutely love the thing. Like I say, mainly because it's different, and mainly because I can reach out and hit somebody close to 60 or 70 meters, which in airsoft terms, that's actually quite a fair distance. The next one is shotgun. As you can probably tell, this one is the Remington 870. Now, with the Remington 870 is the shotgun that you get in the original Resident Evil, and also Resident Evil 2 remake. It's the one that Leon ends up with once you've upgraded the shotgun all the way. So that's really all that needs to be said about that one. In terms of airsoft, I will only ever buy tri-shot or multiple shot shotguns, because shotguns fire shots, therefore more than 1 BB at a time. That's my rationale behind it. You get 2 types of shotguns in airsoft: spring and gas. You also get electric, but they're very rare, very expensive. The main difference between them is spring shotguns tend to be cheaper, and obviously don't need gas to run, but you can only hold 1 shell at a time, which holds 30 BBs, feeds three BBs into the chamber at once and fires them. Gas shotguns are can be more realistic in that you can actually load individual shells just like a real shotgun. So if this was a real shotgun, for example, I'd be able to put 7 shells into the tube and then fire it, and as I'm firing it, the shells themselves can actually eject out the port. But I've decided to go for this one, mainly because I don't have £500 to spend on a gas shotgun. But like I say, that's the Remington 870, which is in Resident Evil, the original, and Resident Evil 2 remake. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is, I'm going to actually go into a little bit of detail on this gun, both the real steel and the airsoft. This is the ARX 160. I'll do the airsoft stuff first and why I bought this. When I was first getting into airsoft, and I was looking around for my first gun, I quickly realised that there are so many, and I mean so many, M4, M16 replicas. So much so that when you go to a skirmish and you're looking around, it's quite literally M4, 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 SCAR, M4, 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 M4. This is a hobby. This is a game. If you really want an M4 that badly, go and join the American military. This is why, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. People complain that there's nothing but M4s on the market, and then go and buy an M4. Why? And again, you'll see this later. This is the ARX 160. This is the standard Italian rifle, or it will be the standard Italian rifle. In terms of airsoft, this runs off of M4 magazines. This has got M4 internals, just like many other airsoft guns out there. But people won't touch it because it's not an M4. Well, if you're not going to touch it because it's an M4, don't bloody complain when you can't get anything but M-sodding 4s. Rant over on that one. In terms of the real steel, the real gun, the real thing, this was actually remarkable and quite ahead of its time, actually. It's a modular gun. So, in terms of what you can see, it's really, really easy to change it out to what you need. So, here, for example, I've got the 10-inch barrel version. If I wanted to change it to the 12 or 14-inch barrel, not that anybody makes it because M4s, all I have to do is pull down on these two lugs, pull the barrel out, and substitute it for either the 12 or 14-inch barrel. And that's all you have to do on the real steel as well. It's as quick and as simple as that. It's designed, or this is the A1. The A1 was designed to fire 4 different calibers of bullets. So that's the 5.56 NATO, 7.62 NATO, 7.62 Soviet, and I think it was 6.8 Remington, but don't quote me on that. The 7.62 NATO was quickly dropped, but 7.62 Soviet was kept, and to change this to 7.62 Soviet takes less than 5 minutes. All you have to do is change the barrel out, and you just see me do that. There's a wave on the bottom there, I don't know if you can see it, but that bit there, that's the lower receiver. You push a button in the back here, that drops out. You put in a new lower receiver that takes the AK style magazines. You've probably seen the banana shaped AK-47 magazines. They literally go in, and you change the bolt so it can fire 7.62, and that's it. And I believe Italy and Turkmenistan have adopted these rifles. Turkmenistan use the 7.62 Soviet, so you know it doesn't take a genius to work out how quickly they can transform their rifles. In terms of being able to change left and right-handed, the safety switch there is also on that side, so left-handed friendly straight away. In terms of ejecting the cases, so this bit obviously cycles backwards and forwards as you're firing the gun, not in airsoft but in the real steel. If you need to change it to left-handed shooting, you pull the cocking handle back to this tab, you pull it out towards you, swing it round in the hole. This pipe's not there in the real thing. Push it back in, and then it's set up for left-handed cocking. In terms of getting the cases to eject out the left, this hole, which is also on this side, you take the tip of your bullet, you push it into there, it will go click, and the cases will eject out the left-hand side, or the right-hand side if you need it to. Okay, you just seen me do it, but I'll do it again. Once your last bullet's fired, this stays back here somewhere. The bolt release to make the gun start working again is underneath there. Now, in terms of the A2 and the A3, they've changed it from there to up on top here. I I won't go into too much detail as to why, but I did think, why would you put the bolt release there? And then I suddenly realised if you put a magazine in, your thumb, put the magazine in, your thumb naturally comes to rest there, bang, you're back into battle quickly. Which is why that's there. So, like I say, the main reason I bought the ARX, however, was basically because I didn't want an M4. Or I wanted M4 compatibility and M4 upgrades, but I didn't want an M4, and this was the closest thing at the time. There are others now on the market, but that was the closest one. I don't take this into skirmish anymore until I get it repaired, mainly because there's a fault with the safety. Now, if you look carefully, I've got it on safe there, okay, and as you can see, the trigger actually goes backwards and forwards. That's safe. Haven't even moved it, and the trigger goes backwards and forwards, or the trigger activates. So I don't take this to skirmish for that reason anymore. Until I get that repaired, it's not going to be going skirmishing with me. You will see me, however, shoot the rifle on video, mainly because, well, there's no one here to accidentally shoot, apart from me, and I don't really matter. Okay, next three. Now, only one of these is Resident Evil inspired. And that's the shotgun again. Okay. So, moving on from what I said last time, you might be looking at this rifle and thinking, well, you're being a bit of a hypocrite there, Brad. Going on and on about M4s, but then you go and get an M4 yourself. Close, but not quite. This is the AR-57. It does not run off of M4 magazines. It runs off of P90 magazines. Now again, you'll see me do that when I come to fire the gun. This one, I'm putting bits and pieces on it, mainly because all the others I want to keep as authentic as possible. This one is just more or less my play gun. The green sticker there is from a skirmish I did, and I can't, at the moment, I can't get it off without ruining or scratching the paintwork. So that's basically the AR-57. Swiftly moving on. This one, this is the Benelli M3, or a copy of the Benelli M3 Shorty. This is the shotgun that Jill has in both Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 3 Remake. The only difference is she doesn't have a stock. She's got a longer barrel. That's all I can really say on that one. This is another spring shotgun. It's a lot heavier than the 870. It's a lot more comfortable as well, a lot easier to shoot. I've had this a long time, as you can tell. I've had it repaired quite a number of times, but even so, the stock is still splitting. Depending on what happens, I may end up getting rid of the stock and trying to do something else with it, but I don't know yet. We'll have to see. Okay, last but by no means least is the Steyr AUG, or the AUG as it should be properly referred to. Bullpups get a lot of shit in. This is a bullpup, so the magazine actually goes in there behind the trigger rather than in front of the trigger. Bullpups get a lot of shit in the press, whether justified or not. But I bought it again just to be different. It's got a two-stage trigger, this one, so I pull it slightly and I get a single shot, pull it all the way, and I get multiple shots. What else can I say about it? Not really much more I can say. Again, you'll see me shoot it, and you'll see that the magazine goes in behind the trigger and the guard. That's really all I can say on those ones. So, oh, one thing I will say, one thing, yeah, before moving on, that gun, and we'll pretend for a moment that this is an M4, not an AR-57. Those three, they actually all fire the same rounds. They all fire the 5.56 NATO. But even though they all fire the same round, they are all supposed to, well, the idea initially, to ease logistics in the field, they're all supposed to run off of these magazines. That fits in the AR-160, and it fits in the M4, like so. Doesn't fit in the AUG. There is a modern adaptation that the AUG will take these. Now, like I say, the idea was to standardise on the magazine I just showed you, and for the most part, most countries did, with the exception of Germany, Austria, Australia, New Zealand, and France. Although France have just changed their standard weapon, and the standard weapon does take the magazines I've just shown you. The rifle they had before will take the magazines I've just shown you, but they had known feeding issues because France got to be France. Right, I'm going to pause the video there. When I come back, it'll be a shooting video with all the guns you've just seen. Okay guys, so this is going to be the shooting portion of this video. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail if I need to about each of the guns. I'm going to start off with the Samurai Edge. I'm only going to shoot a few rounds through this. This being plastic and being a quote-unquote limited edition, I'm actually going to switch the light on just so you got a bit more light there. This being a limited edition, I don't want to damage it in any way. I am using green gas in this, and green gas is technically too powerful for this gun, so I'm only going to be shooting 2 or 3 rounds through it. But anyway, safety off. As you can see, slide locks open on an empty magazine. Magazine out. I'm going to leave the slide locked open for now. Next one is going to be the High Capper, or the STI Eagle. This one, because this one's designed actually to run off of CO2 without any modification, I will be firing a full magazine, which is this. I've actually taken the base off the bottom just so it stands up a little bit easier in the magazine. Again, this is not an accuracy test. This is just so you can see how these shoot. Again, locks open on an empty slide. Okay. I think we'll do the VP70 next. Now this is slightly different in that it has a heel magazine release, rather than a side button magazine release. I'm going to do one magazine on semi-auto, one magazine on full auto. I don't like shooting this gun, mainly because it is very, very, very rare now. So if I get any problems, getting it fixed is either going to be impossible or expensive. There is no hold open on this. So when the magazine is empty, the gun will keep firing. Which is why I've loaded up 2 magazines as opposed to 1. Now, I'm going to do the stock thing. And that's the gun empty. Yep, that's the gun empty. Okay. Colt Python, CO2. Colt Python. Loads from actual shells, so I only get 6 shots in this case. This has become inconsistent now, just because the rubber on the shells is not holding the pressure. But let's fire it anyway. And I'm out. So I will put these back in the speed loader, just so I don't lose any. Okay. Uzi. And you'll understand, once I start shooting this, you'll understand why I like this so much. I won't go through a whole magazine. These are notoriously gas inefficient. So one 12-gram CO2 capsule won't fire the whole magazine. But what I will do, I'll fire a couple of shots on semi-automatic, and then I'll switch to the fun switch. Okay. Semi-auto. Fun switch. And we're out. As you can see, still got plenty of BBs left. Notoriously gas inefficient, but so much fun. Right, I'm going to pause the video just while I tidy away a little bit. And I'll be back with the rifles and shotguns. Don't go away. Right, so we're going to do shotguns first. Might as well just do the 870. So, like I say, single shell goes into the bottom there. That actually holds 30 BBs, so it's enough for 10 shots. The other thing both these shotguns have, or don't have, is they don't have an interrupter mechanism. So what that means is you can actually hold the trigger down, pump or use the action, and as you move the action forward, it will actually automatically fire. I'll show you that now. And that is the shotgun out of BBs. And just to make sure, a lot of people will go, oh my god, he's dry firing. Put it this way, I would rather dry fire a gun, certainly a shotgun like this, than have anybody lose their eye or their teeth. I've almost had it happen. So when it comes to shotguns in particular, I will do that. Spring on a shotgun is easier to replace than somebody's eye or somebody's teeth. Okay, Benelli M3. Jill shotgun from Resident Evil 3. I honestly don't know if this stock is going to last, but we will find out. And again, this doesn't have an interrupter mechanism, so trigger down. I'm actually surprised that the stock lasted, but I'm not sure it's going to last much longer. And this one actually ejects the shells when you pull the catch, which makes it even cooler in my opinion. Okay, all the rifles run off of a battery. I'm going to pause the video between each rifle just so I can swap the battery over. So, first one coming up. Okay, so first up is the ARX. That noise you heard was just the spring unwinding and putting the BBs, or feeding the BBs, into the appropriate place. So, here we go. Sometimes they don't feed properly. There we go. Semi-auto and full auto. That's all you're going to get for that one. Like I say, these do run off of batteries, and I don't want to run the battery out before I've gone through all the guns. So, back in a sec with the next one. Okay, so the next one up is the AR-57. Now, as I said, these magazines, the standard magazines, will fit, but it doesn't actually feed from them. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to leave that one in. Actually fires from these magazines, and these magazines fit on the top. Now again, you might say, well, what's the point in that? Fires a different cartridge. Fires the 5.7 by 28mm, and those magazines actually go on the P90. Anyway, let's get this shooting. Semi-auto first. And now full auto. So, in fact, I might as well finish the magazine off because it's only a low cap. One, two. That's the AR-57. Lovely gun, slightly unusual, and I like it for that reason. Next up will be the AUG. Okay, next up is the AUG. Some of you will see the wire and the battery sticking out the back. Don't normally run this gun with this battery. I normally run it on a much smaller one that will actually fit inside the stock. For this though, it really doesn't matter. Okay. Do the old high cap wind. Make sure the battery doesn't fall. Okay, as I say, it is a bullpup, so you can see my trigger finger is there. The magazine fits in behind. There are advantages and disadvantages to bullpups. I'm not going into them here. If you want to find out what they are, there's plenty of videos online. Anyway, like I say, it's a progressive trigger, so short pull will fire single shot, full pull will fire automatic. Here we go. And full auto. Again, one of my favourites, or a favourite of mine, simply because it's different more than anything else. Okay, next up and last is the M14. Okay, last but by no means least is the behemoth that is the M14 or the M21. It's actually an M14. Long and very hard hitting. I use it as my DMR, which is slightly different to a sniper, but I'm not going to go into the details here. Again, this is full automatic and semi-automatic. I tend to run it on semi only though. You won't see me use the scope because we are far too close to the target to use that. If I was to use the scope, I'd actually end up hitting the cabinet way below the actual shelf that the target's on. So you won't see me do that. Anyway, let's get on with it. And now I'll do this for you. I don't normally, but I will put it into full auto for you. Interesting. And Sounds like the battery's running out. But that's the M14 on full auto for everybody. You might have seen a few BBs drop out of these, out of the guns, when I take the magazine out. That's a problem with high cap magazines, is they tend to do that. One of the problems with high cap magazines anyway, is they tend to do that. It's just something you've got to get used to, is BB spillage. But that's all the airsoft guns I've got. Like I say, this was kind of a special request video, so thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.